After today's video, in only 10 to 20 minutes, you are going to know everything you need to know about RC cars gearing, how to calculate gearing for RC cars, where to buy gears for RC cars, and how to install them, simply because this is what's next on today's episode. Guys, grab a cold drink, I'll do all the work, sit back, relax, educate yourself. Welcome to the Shifrin Show. Here we go. So before we calculate gearing, we need to understand transfer ratio. If you have a single motor with just one ESC, great, same theory exactly. The way to calculate, first of all, before you calculate gearing, our differential ratio is to take the ring gear, which is in most Arrmas, for example, Arrma Limitless, Arrma Infraction, Arrma Typhoon, some Sentence I think, not the Felony, the Arrma Felony gearing or Arrma Felony differentials have different ratios just because the wheels are different sizes, but Arrma Limitless, Arrma Infraction, Arrma Typhoon, a lot of those Arrmas have the same exact transfer ratio. So we're going to calculate 43, which is our ring gear, divided by 13, which is our input shaft or our pinion in our differential, which gives us a transfer ratio of 3.30769. So let's just call it 3.308. We're going to open the gearing app and we're going to hit the plus sign on the right top. By the way, this is the gearing app that I'm using. You guys can find it on the App Store. So let's hit that plus sign on the top right and create a new profile, which will be dual motor Arrma. So dual motor Arrma. Now we're going to go to this new setup and we're going to click on it. Now that we have that new setup, first thing that we have to do is ask ourselves what our transfer ratio. We just answered it by calculating the differential ring gear and input shaft, and it's 3.308. So this is our transfer ratio. Then we're going to input what our wheel diameter is. I like to true my wheels to about 100 millimeter. I'm running foams about 100 millimeters. Now we're going to have to ask ourselves, what is our motor KV? KV, another thing that people sometimes for some reason don't understand. KV, even though it's with a K, not with a C, KV stands for constant velocity. The amount of RPM, revolutions per minute, our motor shaft will spin per minute per 1 volt. So if those motors, which they are the Castle Creation 1717 1650 kV, they will spin 1650 times per minute per volt. This is what kV stands for. So 1650 kV, meaning 1650 RPM per volt, per 1 volt. So we're going to input in the app 1650 kV. Now, we are going to run a setup that have two 8S systems on each side. But let's just for the sake of the calculation, because we're running a parallel configuration, even though it's a dual motor, we're going to treat this car with gearing almost as if it was just one motor, one ESC. So we have an 8S setup, but we're not going to input 8S, simply because then we're confusing the app, or more so physics and ourselves. The problem is that right now, currently, we don't have the technology for batteries that maintain the same voltage under load. Now, let's talk about the relations of power real quick. So, if I'm a battery, okay, there is actually a game between amperage and voltage. Power is wattage, which is the voltage and the amperage multiplies. So, power is wattage, okay? If you want a certain voltage, you will receive less amperage, okay? If you ask, or if we ask our battery to give us more amperage, we're going to get less voltage. The battery cannot maintain high voltage with high amperage. So let's go back to gearing, and we have to calculate that the voltage will sag under load, which means that if we're dealing with an 8S configuration, the voltage will probably sag from about 33 volts to around, I would say, depends on the load, but 27, 28 volts, 26 volts, 25 volts under load, while we're asking about 400 amps by our consumer, which is the motor. When I calculate gearing, and let me just put that screenshot here, I'm actually calculating 6S if I'm running 8S. Not just 6S, I'm actually calculating the lowest amount of voltage per cell. So when I calculate an 8S system, I calculate 6S with 3.75 volt per cell. This is what tells me that this calculation will be somewhat true, because this represents an 8S system under load. 6S times 3.75 to start with. Obviously there's many more variables, but to start with, 3.75. Now, once we did all that, we know exactly our cells, 8S configuration, which represented by 6S at 375. And now we can actually start playing with our gearing. So out of just random, I'm thinking I'm going to be about the 35 pinion here. And we're going to see exactly what happened. And I think spool will be about 30. Just about, if I remember the ratios. Okay, so 35 pinion, 30 spool. Obviously, it's not going to be a spool, it's going to be a spool, will give us 153 miles an hour. Now, I already know that the platform is capable of a lot more, and my goal speed is 170, 180, 170 miles an hour, 180 miles an hour, so I need to gear up. I'm going to increase 1 teeth with pinion, so it's going to be 36, and spool will be 28. That's it. So my goal speed is 170 miles an hour, which will require under load 36 pinion, 28 spool. Saga custom RC guy by the name of Savora, awesome dude, been there and been really in control of the game for a while with a lot of RC parts. I'd actually hit him up real quick. Savora Gadist or VGAD.
What's going on, Raz?
What's going on, V?
Not much, man. Just working.
Nice, man. I'm working on a build, on a video. Actually, you're in that video live right now, so say hello to about 30,000 people.
What's going on, RC World?
RC World. Hey, brother, I need 2 pinions, 36 tooth, 5mm bore. You got some?
Yep, I definitely got some.
All right, can you send some my way, brother?
Yep, I got you. I'll get them out for you tomorrow.
You're the man. I appreciate you. Have a beautiful weekend, man.
Yep, you too.
All right, bye.
All right, yep.
And in order to install this front diff holder, we need 2 screws. I'm going to teach you guys a little trick. So looking at my screws here, we're going to use that type of screw. Let's assume that I have a screw here that I can't reach. Instead of pulling everything, get yourself a magnetizer. They're about $5 and they're worth every penny. You just run your screwdriver through the plus sign that magnetizes your screwdriver, and then you can actually come to your screws. You can pick one and say, okay, this one is cool, and just grab that exact screw, that exact length, instead of just pulling everything out. Now guys, a little fun fact about our diff or spool holder for this specific build. Since the holes are not really lining up with the chassis, I'm trying everything I can. Every vendor, every aluminum part, every diff spool holder, every shaft bearing configuration, cups. I think what I will have to do eventually, unfortunately, is to build a custom spool, and we're going to build one together real quick. Simply the problem is, and let me pin you guys back into action here. The problem is that with the normal positioning on this chassis, not a lot of normal spools can actually fit here. And I had a spool, but I can't find it, but they can't fit here. They're either too short or too long. And thinking about putting some carbon fiber shafts in the front and rear, we're going to have to be a little creative here. So we're probably going to make our own custom spool. The thing is, a custom spool, if I'm already spending the time and energy and effort to make one, I will make it 8mm only, not milled down to 5, just so it's a lot stronger. I just cut myself a nice 8mm titanium shaft, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure it. I'm going to use 8mm board cups, and once we know the exact length and everything, I'm going to actually mill it down here, and I'm actually going to create a flat spot for our spool and 2 flat spots on both sides for our cups. So it's going to be completely custom, and if I need to, I will cut it to the right length. So I'm going to use one of those holders, and in my opinion, I'm guessing that it will need to be a little bit shorter. So let's play around with it. Let's actually make a nice custom spool. I never thought I'm going to have to today, but hey, it is what it is. Let's do it. Guys, thank you so much for staying all the way to the end. Next episode will be electronics, servo, ESCs, batteries, soldering, and whatnot. I'm going to teach you guys how to do all that shenanigans. Thank you so much for staying all the way to the end. I'm pretty sure today's episode was a little bit longer for some viewers, but I can tell you from our side here, it took me about 13 hours straight to shoot this episode. So thank you so much. Thank you for being part of my RC community and all the crazy shenanigan builds that we're doing here. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. If you want to follow this build, of course, subscribe and hit that bell so you get notification and know when the video is actually launched. In the next one, we're going to do electronics and whatnot. I already explained everything about it. I'm Shifrin. I appreciate you guys. See you on the next one. Bye.